Hi everybody, we're here on the final day of Sage Summit. I'm here with Katharine Mobley. She's the CMO of Crescerance. Katharine, you want to introduce yourself?
Great, thank you. Yes, I'm Katharine Mobley, CMO of Crescerance. We are an educational technology company that creates mobile apps for students through a curriculum for K-12 development that teaches them how to build apps without coding through a product called MadLearn, and we also have a product called Ember, which is available for schools and districts so that they can have a branded and custom app so that they can communicate with parents. Parents are on their screens over 9 hours a day.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. I'm
Yeah.
the oldest of four, and I know my mom, there's two still in high school, and my mom's always having to communicate with your
Yes.
teachers and them. And yeah.
So you can get push notifications and text messages instead of an inbox with about 3,000 emails.
Smart.
Yes,
Okay.
very good.
So talk to us a little bit about what it means to be the CMO of that organization and what your day-to-day
Yeah,
looks like.
absolutely. Well, no day is the same. It's always crazy. I'm in an emerging technology company. I'm 20 years into technology, so I'm very familiar with this. So day to day, it typically starts out, getting together with the team, knowing where we are. I do a lot of press events, a lot of writing, also a lot of blog posts, communicating to our community as to how to use an app. Education is about 15 years behind most industries, so finding what we do is difficult for schools and districts. A lot of them have websites, but they don't know that the mobile apps are available. So we have to do a lot of marketing for that. We also do a lot of events with our association partners, so we have to plan for those. And then obviously just day to day, talking to customers about what they enjoy about the product, how we make the product better, and working with our development team.
Cool. So what kind of, you mentioned that education is 15 years behind everybody else. What kind of misconceptions do they have about the tech space and what's really out there?
It's very interesting. I say that education has a 40-year gap. So you have your new teachers coming into the industry, and you have your superintendents exiting the industry, and then you add students and teachers into that, and that's a whole nother age gap. And one of the things about education is it's just starting to really be disrupted and be more innovative. My son's school here in Atlanta in Cherokee County has no textbooks. So they literally walk in with a laptop. The laptop is connected to a server. The work is uploaded to a server. So we're just starting to really get into that tech phase. And from a standpoint of parental communication, I have 2 children in the school system. It used to be the Thursday folder. So that's how the communication was sent home to mom and dad, and now it's much easier to rely on communication through mobile devices or even email, and we're trying to get people to realize that email is so inundated that being able to say, there's a school bus change through a push notification alerts up a parent instantaneously versus being buried in my inbox of 10,000 emails.
Absolutely, that's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. So it's really starting to pick up, and education is truly starting to evolve. Ron Clark Academy here, there's great examples of how things are changing in the industry, and I like to think that we're on the forefront of that.
Awesome. So talk to me a little bit about your role as a mentor at Atlanta Tech Village.
Yes, I have been a part of the Atlanta tech scene for 20 years now. Started back in the 90s during the last .com boom, and was reached out by a friend of mine to join the Atlanta Tech Village as a mentor, and applied and was taken in. And one of the things that's interesting is I can mentor companies, but one young lady actually reached out to me about 2 days ago and said she's really struggling as a marketer on how to market because she's working with a founder that doesn't know marketing.
Okay.
And so I can mentor the company itself, even though they're not in the Tech Village anymore, and I don't work with them directly through the Tech Village. I've done a lot of work with Terminus and their team. I'm a huge fan. I'm an honorary Terminator, and I've done a lot of work with Flip My Funnel with Nikki and Sangram and Lauren, and just really believe in their product and what they're doing. And then on the flip side, I've done some work with Kevy and a couple of others.
Cool. So what exactly does it mean to be a mentor there? Do you go in every day? Do you go in once a week? Do you call people? How does it work?
Sometimes you call people, sometimes you go in, obviously attending chow downs, different events.
What's a chow down?
Yeah, every Friday there's a chow down at the Tech Village at noon.
Oh.
Yes.
Right.
So part of it's that. One of the things that I think is challenging, and we're discussing it, is people are intimidated maybe by some of us in the mentorship program.
Okay.
So we're going to start working on more content for them to feel more comfortable to reach out to us directly and really talk to us and get involved. Because I think mentorship is huge in not just a business but in individual growth. And if you have that relevancy in the industry from a marketing perspective or a technology perspective or a payments perspective, etc., I think it can really help a company grow.
Absolutely. And you have to have that open communication with your mentor. You can't be afraid of them. You have to really say, here are my problems.
Yes, you have to be very, very Brooke Beach and I at Kevy were very, very close and got to do that. And it's even funny how I say that mentorship is a two-way street. And so now some of the people that I've mentored are now mentoring me. And even my mentor of 20 years ago, I helped mentor her through buying her company back a few years ago. So it's funny how it can go both ways. And I think that's really important both for business and for individuals.
Absolutely. So what kind of advice do you find yourself having to give over and over? Or what are there any questions that you get regularly, things that you just want to make sure everybody out there in Facebook land knows?
I get a lot about how to market or how to go to market. So a lot of people in the tech scene can develop a product or come up with something, but they don't necessarily know what positioning or a brand persona is. And the market's changing. Everything's going now to social media and lead gen and marketing automation. And one of there's so many tools. The marketing tech stack is enormous. So I think one, knowing what's relevant to your product. So in education, it's been a huge learning curve for me. 9 months in, and it's much slower than I'm used to. I'm used to fintech, which is 1,000 miles an hour.
Sure.
And in those types of industries, you can put in a marketing automation tool and have a lot more points of contact. But in education, you have to really think about those educators come in at 7:30 in the morning and till 3:30, there's no way you're going to reach them. And then after that, you might be able to do things. So our webinars have to happen at 7 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock at night. And we also have to work on the West Coast with that. So it's really knowing your market and knowing your buyer, because that's the other side of it. Is if I'd come in and turned on the knobs in marketing automation and Crescerance, there's a whole bunch of teachers that it would have never reached because we didn't know where to reach them and at what time. So you really kind of have to know the buyer from the perspective of when they want to be reached, how they want to be communicated to, and what channels they're on. We have a lot of relevancy on Twitter because actually there are a lot of educational chats. But there's more superintendents on LinkedIn, but we're not going to find a lot of them typically in Instagram. But Pinterest, teachers purchase through Pinterest.
Oh, sure.
So that was an interesting fact for me to learn through the educational side of being in ed tech.
Okay, so that's something that probably everybody can take into their own businesses. You have to know who you're talking to, and you have to know where those people really are.
Yeah, you really do, and you have to really know about what channels are relevant. I think there's so many channels now with Facebook Live and with Instagram stories and everything. Not all of your buyers are going to be on those channels, so really know who you're communicating to, specifically as an emerging business, because you typically don't have the bandwidth to be on every channel and you don't have the team.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what mistakes do you see people making the most often? Is it sounds like it might be spreading themselves too thin, or putting effort where it doesn't make sense?
The one, spreading themselves too thin, not understanding how to market to their buyers, and then also a lot of people make really big decisions on hiring an agency very early on. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people spend a very large amount of money and get very little bits of traction out of it, because in the agency model, there are great agencies and there are agencies that can do really, really well for you, but you need to make sure, again, that agency knows your market. Because if I had hired an agency for Crescerance that didn't know education, it would have been a challenge. So I actually hired an SEO consultant in education that focused on K-12, and she really walked me through the process of how educators search for buying technology, and that was huge for me because I learned a lot about what I thought I knew, and I really didn't. But had I just gone out and hired an SEO consultant that just did anything in B2B tech, I don't think it would have been as fruitful.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah.
That makes sense. So are there any pieces of, you mentioned that sometimes your mentees circle back around and you learn from them now. Is there any piece of information or wisdom that you've kind of gained from those relationships that you want to share?
Yeah, a lot. Chloe Ramsey drugged me to Twitter in 2011, I believe, and I now have almost 13,000 followers. And had I not done that, I don't think I'd have the reach that I do within my own audience in marketing and for women in tech. So I think you have to always kind of keep a pulse on what's going on in the market from what the new individuals merging into the market are into. So millennials are not a bad word, and you can learn a lot. I've learned a lot from them. They've learned a lot from me. But I think knowing what's happening and not being afraid of new technology, because that's one thing that I literally was drugged to Twitter. And now it's one of the biggest platforms for me to share information, not only for myself, but for Crescerance.
Sure.
Even though our buyers aren't all necessarily there, it's an awareness factor, and I think people don't think about that. Still haven't quite figured out Snapchat, although Akshat in our office and Nikki are trying to get me into it more. But I'm fairly proficient in Instagram as well, and who knows what the new tool will be next week. So I think you really kind of have to keep some young talent around to learn from, and I've learned a lot from them.
That's fantastic
Yeah.
advice. Yeah, you can always be learning from anybody who comes,
Absolutely.
comes across your path.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, can you tell our viewers how they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. They can reach me personally at Katharine Mobley. It's Katharine Mobley on Twitter. And they can also find the company at Crescerance.com. So that'd be pretty easy. That's the easiest way to reach me.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for talking with us,
Great.
Katharine.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for tuning in.